What's going on, guys? Captain Reddit here, and today we're gonna look at some entitled parents. Like and subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get right into it. Entitled kid stabs me in the arm with a knife. A bit of background. Two kids, 9-year-old entitled daughter and 10-year-old entitled son. In my neighborhood, were homeschooled. They also had very religious parents who were convinced they could do no wrong. The children were generally very annoying and entitled due to their isolation from society from homeschooling. So anyways, one day me and my younger brother, 8, were playing in our front garden, just running around like the children we are. I was about 12, so slightly older than everyone else in the story. So we were playing happily when entitled kids come out of their house and over to our lawn. "What are you two losers doing?" "We're playing." "Well, I bet you're not even good at the game." "My brother is the fastest boy I know." Probably because they knew no one else. I swear the only time they left their house was for church every Sunday. "No, my brother is the best runner." "Thanks, little bro." He then challenges me to a race at the end of the neighborhood. First one there wins. Okay, fair. Entitled kid starts counting from 3, 2, starts running and then says go. I easily start catching him and am about to pass him about halfway down the road when he reaches into his pocket and, no joke, pulls out a pocket knife. He then proceeds to stab me in the arm as I am running. I, of course, yell out in pain and stop running with a knife still sticking out of my arm. On the verge of tears, I get up and walk back to my house, clutching my arm, now bleeding quite a bit. The entitled daughter taunts me about losing the race, entitled son cheering and shouting from the other end of the street as I go inside my house to get my mom. My arm and left side of my jumper are now completely red. It was quite deep. He had really gone for the kill. She is just in the kitchen right next to the front door, so I quickly came to see me repainting the floor. She immediately asks what happened after running to get her first aid kit. She is a primary school teacher, so is trained in first aid. I explain through tears as it really cheesing hurt. She goes outside to confront entitled son, who has now cornered my brother and is taunting him, along with entitled daughter, about how slow his brother is. My brother is now crying also, and my mom is furious. Holding back punches, she yells at entitled son for a full 5 seconds about violence before the neighbor's door bursts open and out the waddles entitled mother. "What the cheese do you think you're doing yelling at my son?" My mother. "Your son just stabbed my son." "What the cheese is he doing with a knife? That's his pocket knife that he got for his birthday. Where have you put it?" My mother, confused but still very angry. "What?" "I said, have you hidden my son's knife? That's his property and I demand you give it back right now or I will call the police." My mom is stunned into silence for a few seconds, during which I have left the house as I have now bled through the bandage she has quickly put on and am feeling faint. "There it is! Give it back, you little cheese!" She had noticed the knife poking out of my arm, which my mom had left in as to not make the wound any bigger. The entitled mom then stormed past my mom and yanked it out of my arm along with a small chunk of flesh. At this point, I lost consciousness as I had lost quite a bit of blood, and the pain from the flesh being ripped was the final straw. After that, I am told my mom called 999, while the entitled mom and kids ran inside their house and locked the door. I was taken to the hospital before I was given blood transfusion and was properly bandaged up. Turns out a major vein in my arm had been cut, so it was pretty bad. In the end, entitled son and daughter were put in foster care after the CPS looked into their homeschooling, and the entitled mother ended up serving some time in prison. My mom did not press any charges as her presence in the church and primary school have given her a kind heart for children with poor parents. I recovered pretty quickly and got a nice cool scar to show my friends. CPS found that the entitled kids knew next to nothing in maths, English and science and had instead been indoctrinated about God and the Bible during their homeschooling. This is in England, so the NHS covered the full treatment, so no need to press charges to cover costs, only for revenge. Oh man, can you believe these entitled kids? Just imagine going outside and wanting to play with other kids, or at least to mock them, and just stabbing another kid in the arm. How entitled should you feel? Anyway, Entitled Mother blames us for a free-to-play game not working. I've made a post before, but as usual I'll give a bit of backstory and context. I work in a retail computer store. I'm a part-time technician, but I also deal with customers with regards to sales, etc. So a while back we had this entitled mother and entitled kid coming in to buy a new computer for entitled kid. We discussed some options with their price range and end up selling entitled kid a mid-range gaming computer. This happened on a weekend, as it was the only time I ever worked, as I was part-time. Fast forward to next week. I come into work the morning seeing entitled kid's rig on the table by the other tech work. It was a very specific rig that I built myself, so I recognized it. My work colleague calls me over, seeing as I was the only avid gamer in the shop, and tells me that this is my baby, seeing as I told entitled kid the rig and I wouldn't know how to fix some game related issues. Little did I know at the time that he was avoiding the screaming banshee and rather passed the work on to me. I didn't mind working on it at all because I could have some fun while working, as I had to test why the game wasn't working on entitled kid's computer. I had to play games until it crashed and try to figure out what was wrong. The game in question was Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Online. This happened during the early release of the game, and being a free-to-play game there was bound to be some bugs. The first few times the game crashed on startup, sometimes mid-match and other times just refused to even start. About an hour into testing the computer, entitled mom storms in. I don't exactly remember the dialogue, as this was a few years ago. Entitled mom basically already shouting at me because the useless computer I sold her. At this point I am trying to explain to entitled mother why the game isn't working, as I still haven't gotten a clue myself yet, as many other people are having the same problems. She wasn't having any of it. She told me to refund her for the computer, as we sold her useless trash that entitled kid can't use anymore. She was red in the face when I told her, first off, our store has a no refund policy, which you can clearly see on the wall behind me, and secondly, there is nothing wrong with the computer we sold you, but rather the game itself is broken. It was after I made it clear that the game wasn't working that she then requested a refund for a free-to-play game? It turns out, entitled kid spun some story about how he bought the game, to which I thought that he bought an in-game currency, only to later realizing that he actually bought hacks. She was livid that we never made it clear that there is a no refund policy and practically stormed out. Eventually, after a whole day of working on it, I got this game to work. Not for long, because 2-3 weeks later the new update got released and the game broke again. Long and behold, entitled mother screaming at me again for the broken game, which turned out to be entitled kid banned for hacking. I had been working on this computer for a full day when she was furious when I told her that the hours of labor I worked on would only cost her $17, which was very cheap considering. She basically stated that the computer was garbage and that it should have worked on day one. She eventually paid and left the store, never to return again. I wish. On our next talk, we noticed 2 games case were missing on the shelf. We only recently started selling games, but I came up with a system to store the game discs in a holder in the back with the numbers attached to the game case, or sometimes in the game case in case of any attempted theft. I am not sure if entitled mom and entitled kid decided to try and steal a game from us without us noticing, or if some other kids snatched them not knowing the discs were in the back, but I really do hope it was entitled kid realizing his mistake afterwards that we kept the games in the shop. I wished that they would come back to the store complaining about buying a game without the discs included. That would have made for a good story, but whoever attempted to steal is now left with an empty case. Ha! Side note, any CD keys and game keys were also removed. Not as satisfying, but this was one of my run-ins with an entitled mother and her little gremlin. I mean, truly the mother is entitled, but come on, can you blame her? She probably has no idea what the kid is doing. She probably doesn't even know what a free-to-play game means, apparently. And the kid, oh my god, why would you hack? Like, play the game. That'll be all for today, guys. If you want a continuation of our second story, like this video and tell us if you want to actually hear it, and we'll see you next time.